Championship here at DreamHack Winter. I've decided to take the steering wheel away from Nathanius for a little bit as we get ready for our next game. Joining me, of course, as throughout the whole last couple of days it's been so, it's Snoot, the Muslim, and Nathanius. We've switched sides. How does it feel on that side?
Feels great, Sean.
Feels great, Nate.
Feels great. I didn't quite have the Where's Nathanius thread that you're very familiar with, but
you did.
There was one guy in the chat that asked. There was one guy in the chat that asked, so I figured,
I'm going to please that one guy.
That guy, because he also put a kappa in his message, which meant he meant it. So.
And now you are going to be casting out in this game, which is going to be, of course, puCK versus TY. Before we talk about that, I do want to remind all of you that we do have the ROCCAT competition going through. So if you want a chance to win some goodies from ROCCAT, do send in your tweets, the hashtag #SetTheRules, and also hashtag DHW15 for your chance to win. But now let's talk a little bit about this match. America makes perfect sense for you to cast it versus Korea in a game where puCK thinks he can win 3-0, Ben.
He really said he can win 3-0?
Yeah, he came over here and told us. He said he's going to win 3-0.
That's quite a bit of confidence. And against a guy like TY, TY isn't one of the Korean Terrans that plays by the book. He's one of the guys that really kind of multitask heavy, small little armies everywhere. Winning 3-0 is going to be quite the feat, but we did see that he's definitely dominatable. Like Lilbo did it with a lot of adepts and just kept on pushing. And he found one weakness, which was, hey, TY keeps his wall down, just kept abusing him.
And TY was also mentioning in the interview earlier that his condition today is not that great.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
And he said that, and also he said that puCK is a player that he considers as good as the top-tier Koreans, too.
Yeah, it's a lot of praise to go for puCK. He's obviously been on top of the North American ladder, which the majority of people are going to tell you, okay, well, that's not really going to do too much. But he is the sole American that has made it this far at DreamHack. This is one of the first times he's been able to get into a competition like this, where it's much more even, skill field as far as who he's playing against. So this is a big opportunity. The fact that he's already beaten Bomber kind of says, okay, he definitely knows how to play versus the Korean Terrans, but I guess it really comes down to what TY does, because his TVP...
Bomber and TY are different.
Yeah, the games that we saw from TY were pretty, like some of those maps, a lot of it came down to, why are you trying to rush 3 command centers versus Protoss and Legacy of the Void? Protoss is strongest in, it's like flip-flop, right? It's that mid-game, right? Where the Warp Prism comes in, if you're greedy, they get in, they drop the Adepts, you just kind of die, right? I don't think there's any reason to be really greedy versus Protoss right now, so I kind of hope he dials it back for this series.
As much as Bomber is different to TY, so is puCK to Lilbo. Lilbo plays hyper-aggressive. I don't think that's exactly how puCK's going to be addressed in this series, Snoot.
Probably still aggressive, I would believe, but not as much as Lilbo.
I like the Warp Prisms. puCK used them a lot yesterday. When I asked him about his games versus Bomber as well, and he basically told me, he's like, yeah, the Disruptor drops did a lot of damage, as well as, Bomber did that thing where he just flies medevac straight into your army as well. Apparently that happened in one of the games against puCK, so if you missed that. But I'm expecting to see him stick with the harass, but puCK's never really been especially against Terran, I would say, the all-in Protoss. I don't know if he's going to float 40 Adept Shadows over his army.
I'm curious how this game's going to go. If he has been using the Disruptor drop style, that's one of the styles that I've been finding hard when a Protoss takes a third Nexus while dropping you with the Disruptors, because dealing with one, you can't leave your base and be aggressive. It's like the old the Oracle build where he was harassing you.
Right.
You had to deal with the Oracle while he's taking a third. It's very hard to move out. Slowly, Terrans learn to deal with it, but the Disruptor is so much more powerful. But also, as your army moves out across the map to try and deal with him, once he's got a third, then the Disruptor comes back and just deals with your army. So I'm looking at this with a lot of curiosity if he does play like that, and I'd like to see how TY really deals with it.
And that's what we should be expecting from puCK, right? That's how we played in Nation Wars.
Yeah, that's exactly the type of play that I expect. I think the biggest weakness for puCK that we saw out of his series against Happy yesterday, at least, was dealing with the mine drops. So maybe that's something that if TY did any preparation, in the last hour or so looking into this match that he knew he was going to be playing for a while, I think that would have been probably a good choice to go with, because that, for me, is it happened 3 or 4 times where puCK lost 12-plus probes to a single Widow Mine.
What are your final thoughts here, Snoop, before we go to the casters?
Just puCK is going to really have a stronger early game than against Happy, because I believe TY is the guy that can show up with some very aggressive builds, and if the Widow Mines kill as many probes as they did the last time, then I'm not sure if puCK will be able to actually recover from such a position.
All right, it's going to be a big win if you can pull it off. We're about to find out as the game is almost ready. It is time to head to your commentary team as Nate from the US of A has to commentate the USA player with the Muslim.
Good to be on this side of the desk for once this weekend, Ben.
I like being accompanied by you, Nathan. Makes me feel really tall.
Well played. So we've casted a lot together. I was trying to get all chummy with you, and then you just got to smack me down.
I'm sorry, I can still hear Sean tittering. But no, it's really good to have you back. And yeah, we have casted a lot of frag bite together. Good times. Hope to see you again.
A lot of casting in Sweden. It's good to be in Sweden with you,
Sweden
Ben.
is our time. Sweden is our place.
It's a good place. We hope you guys have been having a lot of fun. I'm excited for this match.
Yeah.
Obviously, because,
puCK's your boy.
You spent enough time in NA. You played a lot of games against puCK.
I do know puCK quite well, and if I recall any game with puCK, it would be in a game where we're booth to booth, the same booth, and I mana-muled him really hard. And he did GG, and he was very angry at me.
Is there anyone you've ever beaten that you haven't mana-muled before we introduce the players?
In control, because he's massive.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't mess with him either. As you guys can see, we are loaded in the first map, Orbital Shipyard in the northeast. We have puCK representing Team Flipside Tactics. Those guys have been pretty cool as well. They picked up puCK, Fails. At least the two players that come to mind most for me when I think about North American StarCraft.
And spawning in the southwest side as our blue Terran, it is TY. Sad that he's not feeling too well. And I'm surprised that puCK's so confident, saying that he's going to 3-0.
I mean, I don't know what those stats are based off of,
No,
but
0%.
you know what? You know what? He's got 0% win rate versus Protoss to Muslim, so clearly that means it's not possible for him to win.
But we watched puCK lose against Happy 2-1.
Yeah.
And I mean, he did make mistakes, obviously, with the probes and such against the Widowmines, but...
That was always the most interesting thing about puCK. If anyone that follows NA, you'll watch him play a series against Hyun in WCS when he was the Terror, the Scourge, and you'd have puCK smash down a guy like Hyun and then lose to almost any random North American Terran. I felt like Terran players were especially puCK's biggest weakness, and it's possibly the best thing that this expansion comes out and puCK maybe finds a way to play that's unique enough in a different way from how hard of the Swarm was that he actually can have success, because if he's beating Korean Terrans at DreamHack, he's clearly doing something right.
Yeah, this game's so different, and maybe HOTS wasn't completely suiting to his style, and Protoss had only one way to play against Terran. Yes, you could do some cheesy 2-base all-ins with Blink and what have you, but slowly Terrans learned how to play against that. Eventually it just turned into Protoss getting 3 bases and turtling and surviving. So maybe that just wasn't his forte, but now that he has the opportunity to play aggressive with Disruptors and Warp Prisms and what have you, it's a totally different element.
Yeah, and we have puCK actually going for that pretty quick second gateway as the Cybernetics core gets close to completing, so maybe we'll see a little bit of early Adept pressure or something along those lines as the Reaper kills the probe running home. That SCV is still here as well, so obviously you want to get scouting information, but it really just comes down to how much this Reaper can be annoying. The Zealot is basically going to be a body blocker and soak up shots, and if he can be there long enough to spot some sort of tech. And so far it looks like I'm just going to assume it's double Adept. TY's going for a third command center build again.
Man, maybe he's doing that because he's seen that his opponents made a Nexus first, which, remember old TvT and old PvP back in Wings of Liberty? Ooh, wow, that's a waste of an overcharge. So that's a nice little bait out by TY.
That Reaper was barely out of range. That's actually a pretty nice pickup for him.
But remember, you used to leapfrog your opponent. If your opponent expanded quicker than you, you'd make 2 to counter that. So
yeah.
I feel that's the idea behind what TY is doing here. But you're right, it is rather ambitious.
To me, it just comes down to how fast you can get that tech up, and the Reaper baits out another overcharge, still manages to stay alive, so TY being very annoying. What?
Exceedingly annoying. This isn't really destined to do anything besides delay his mining, so...
Sorry, I just need a moment. That's just really weird.
RIP building engineering bay.
Yeah.
I don't think sacrificing an SCV...
Has that ever... I've seen... sometimes players have done it. Maybe once a year you see it. But I don't think anyone's ever been yes, this was definitely worth that temporary 125 minerals.
Yeah, I mean, you lose... What is it, 31 minerals doing that? And then you lose the SCV as well?
Look at this fast cyclone, though. So this is his way of saying, okay, obviously Marines aren't going to work against Adepts, but if I can use my wall to just push you away long enough, I should be good. That the robotics facility is coming in pretty late.
Like, he's got a Cyclone here, so that's going to deal with the Adept, sure. But look at the Marines as well. So TY is one of the players that we've seen using Cyclones. And we haven't seen, we've barely seen any other Terrans survive and make it this far, so maybe he's doing something right.
There's a lot of Marines coming across this. That's a really good point. The Adept is going to see this. It will die. And with that Cyclone, there's a lot of pressure that can be done because the Reaper is here too. Also throwing those grenades into the Probe Bomb. We have Pylons finishing on the ramp, but is it going to be enough? Should be overcharged immediately. The Cyclone's going to try to target on the Mothership core. The Stalker should be able to barely pick it off just in time to save it.
That Cyclone just dies before it was about to get that Mothership core. Even the Stalker survives, and that's some pretty nice choice of producing 3 like reactive pylons at the start of the ramp.
It was close. Getting the pylon on top of the ramp was the most important part, and then we can see puCK just saying, okay, well, I'm going to take this faster base. But it's really important to note, but because of the Cyclone opening and the tank follow-up, TY still hasn't started Stim yet. So as I say that, he begins Stim research. Pushing out across the map is borderline suicide now that the robotics facility is done, especially if puCK gets a Warp Prism.
And look at this, actually. This is very bad for TY. He's been supply blocked by, like, from me starting that sentence, no depot on the way either. Still, oh wait, 3 depots about to finish, but still getting a supply block at 61.
Ye old depot finishing up as you supply drop, and you're like, yeah, okay, I haven't really been building units for a little bit, and there's that Warp Prism coming in. A couple extra gateways are going to get added as well. I feel like for puCK, this has to be a great position because you don't have any threat of a counterattack of any sort. Like, Starport's not done yet, no upgrades are on the way, Stim is, you know, not even halfway yet. All he has is the tank to defend, but that's not really ideal against Warp Prism anyway.
No, certainly not. Giving away that you've got Blink here is kind of, I'm not sure if I totally agree with that, because that means that, hey, he's probably not got Disruptors out anytime soon or anything healthy gas-wise within a Warp Prism anytime soon, so I'm not sure I agree with that. Obviously, he wanted to know what was going on behind that wall, but yeah.
And this is where things can get really tricky. So TY, with that scan, he sees the 3rd Nexus. He's like, okay, I'm going to move out. I'm going to move down my ramp. Stim still isn't done yet. It's getting closer and closer, but this is where that Warp Prism can really get tricky. If these Stalkers put a bit of pressure on from the front and the Warp Prism hits from the back, he doesn't have enough Marines. You know, at some point, those Stalkers could even try to just dive on top of the siege tank once the Marines run away to deal with that Warp Prism.
There's also a beautiful position if you can bait the Terran army outside of the 3rd here, down that ramp.
Those 3 sentries. You just warped 3, and I'm really interested to see, actually. Yeah, the sentries were there with the Warp Prism.
If you can go to the left here and just a bit down at the bottom of the cliff.
He could blink into the main and force field him out.
Exactly, Nathanius, which it looks like is exactly what he's going for, which if he can get away with this, TY is going to be in quite a bit of trouble.
There he is. The sentries are out. There's the force field on the ramp. The bio, he's going to have to lift it up and try to move it inside of his own base, but he has to be very careful about those blink Stalkers. Some Marauders are going to finish up. He snipes one of the Medivacs before it can empty. Another force field on the ramp is going to hold that bio back. Some of it does manage to trickle through, though, as Stim completes.
Oh, this army, though, from puCK, it is getting cleaned up slowly but surely. The Warp Prism being focused, but the rest of puCK's army left to be just decimated by this bio ball. And while all this went on, 5 SCVs are dead for sure, but I think TY actually dealt with that pretty okay, despite losing the full medevac straight away.
Yeah, definitely a moment of chaos, to say the least. puCK is ahead about 10 workers, but, you know, those
macros slipping, though. Look at his minerals. He just spent a good 500 minerals or so.
Those forces that he lost were very expensive. And now he's moving into Disruptors, so, you know, he still has that powerful, cost-effective force if he can get those Disruptor shots off. But he needs to be really careful, because this is the moment where if you're TY, your Stim is done, your medevacs are out, combat shield is ready, you want to start putting pressure on the Protoss if you can.
TY's got together a pretty decent army here as well. He's also got 1-1 upgrades going, so this army's scarier than it looks.
That base should not stand very long once TY sees that.
The supply so low to say he's going for this 4th. Like 100 supply.
I mean, I can kind of see, like, if you're not able to get the damage done that you want to take maybe a risk here or there. So getting it canceled would hurt, but at the same time as his army starts to attack and shut down that building 4th base, the Widowmine drop comes into the main. Good reaction time to get those overcharges going, but, you know, it doesn't last forever. And at the same time, puCK has that Warp Prism outside of TY's base trying to get in the Widowmine. The Disruptor drop as well.
Few kills there, but the Disruptor, this is the real threat here. And wow, what a split by TY. I think he lost 1 SCV.
He killed 1 SCV.
And that was really, really smart play by him.
TY making some really great decisions in this game as puCK is kept on edge throughout all of this. And I really think, you know, in playing Widowmine drops of any kind against puCK is definitely a strong way to play. It seems to be a very big struggle point for him.
Yeah, splitting probes is tough at the best of times, but when you're nervous and in a lose or win situation. I mean, it's still a good disruptor shot. The split was decent. But,
you get a few of those Marauders, and at the same time, you force out a stim. The Stalker Adept army is going to come in here and try to take this fight. I'm not quite sure he's ready to battle this Terran army just yet.
I'm very scared for puCK here. And look, if he gets down that disruptor, wow.
Okay.
You know, people haven't learned how to deal with disruptors yet. If he just committed to killing it.
Yeah, it's tricky because if you do kill the disruptor, then the shot doesn't do any damage at all. But at the same time, 2 Liberators are going to try to pressure the back of the natural expansion, maybe the main as well. Is it in range of that pylon? I'm not quite sure, but at the same time, he has to try to defend this 4th base. Disruptor shot's going to go out. Marines pulling back to the Widow Mines as well, which would really do a great job of clearing out those Adepts.
Really great play by TY here, not taking any of the disruptor shots. And these Liberators, 13 kills, 14 kills, still keeps on growing. The mining is totally shattered by puCK here.
Yeah, puCK's economy is getting liberated right now. The Stalkers jump up. They don't even actually kill it. Okay, loses an extra Stalker for nothing there. That disruptor shot completely whiffs. Great save by the War Prism, but is it going to be enough? His 4th base finishes, and there we have it. The Freedom Zone's being planted right next to that Nexus.
He needs his Mothership Core over here. ASAP, those pylons need to be shooting. They need to be helping. Blink Stalkers cannot stand toe-to-toe with this army, especially with the Liberation Zones here.
Yeah, this is a really rough spot to be in for puCK. 17 probes lost throughout all of this, just barely cleaning up that Liberator in his natural expansion. And this is where Terran becomes so difficult to play versus as a Protoss player in Legacy of the Void. That Liberator count just ramps up, and you have to keep your army all over the place because just diving with Stalkers is rarely enough because you know underneath those Liberators there's going to be Marauders, and now at the same time, the drops are coming in.
Oh, and look at this. He's just dropping 2 Marines in the main to deal damage, a few Marines in the natural. Stuff's going on absolutely everywhere, and this is TY in a nutshell. He is just a multitask machine. And here, 170 supply against 115. +2 weapons is on the way against just the +1 of the Protoss.
And look at that rally across the map, that long stream of blue. TY about to max out now as this +2 gets closer, and I love this, just daisy chaining these Liberators forward. There's the disruptor shots. Neither of them are going to go off. Gets 1 big hit in the center of this army, but still 122 supply to 164. TY's got about 30 army supply lead, and what does puCK have to answer these Liberators with?
Absolutely nothing by the looks of it. He does run into the Liberation Zones, though. That is a good 3 or 4 Liberators shooting absolutely everything. The army getting decimated. The Disruptor comes in, but too little too late, and GG is called. TY takes a pretty confident Game 1 victory there.
Yeah, it's a really interesting position to be put in when you go for that big blink play that puCK made with the War Prism. I keep thinking back to that when he force-fielded the natural, he force-fielded the main from the 3rd base. He gets those Stalkers in. But I feel like that's a position where if you can just warp in a few Adepts with that, when the SCVs get pulled to kill the Stalkers, you can get so much more work done because he barely killed anything with that attack, but he lost so much.
It didn't feel like he warped in too much either.
Yeah.
Like as you said, Adepts would have been great when the SCVs were pulled, but he sniped down 1 medevac. Then there was a moment when he misclicked on the 2nd one, and he started shooting a Marauder instead. So the 2nd medevac got to unload quite a bit. TY handled it very well, though. He was very quick to react. He realized that, hey, I'm out of position here. Tank on the bottom also came into a close position to shoot. Maybe if puCK started rearranging himself to move more left over to the natural, then he could reinforce a bit easier away from like the 3rd and ramp and whatever.
Even if he just doesn't go for the crazy blink play, like there's that opportunity where if you're able to get that War Prism in with the sentries, he could just have all of his gateways fire out a big round of Adepts once he's inside and not even commit all the Stalkers. Because I feel like, especially relative to what he got out of that push, Stalkers are just so expensive. You know, 7 Adepts is still a lot, but it's so much less expensive than 7 Stalkers.
And they don't take extra damage from Marauders either.
Yeah.
And they deal extra damage to
and they can
Marines.
actually fight those SCVs pretty effectively as well. So
you're totally right.
It's it's definitely one of those situations where it's a bit tricky because the blink Stalker play, like, and in theory it does sound good, but TY collapsed on it very quickly. It was really smart of him because honestly I feel like without having stim, because it did finish right as that happened, maybe it's a bit trickier. And the 3rd command center play, that's why I think it's a bit dicey to go for that. But a little bit of cheekiness in that game too. Like that early Cyclone Marine push, I felt like that was a really ambitious thing to go for.
Super ambitious. I mean, hypothetically, what's the best case scenario? A Protoss not having a pylon defensively? Like, he's always going to have a pylon.
I heard this Protoss player doesn't build pylons, guys. We got this. Like,
and on a map like that in specific, like, he didn't have his 3rd going down yet. So if you just have a pylon at the top of your ramp,
yeah,
you you have to maintain vision for the Cyclone to keep on shooting the pylon. So one pylon literally holds off those 6 Marines in the Cyclone quite handily.
You'd have to like burn a scan, and then at the same time the other pylons were going up. So
like I'm thinking about maps that don't have a ramp on the way to the natural or the main. So then you could possibly use the Cyclone to kind of dance around, which would be kind of neat, but most maps don't have that.
Yeah, trying to get, I don't think any of the current maps, like if you want to pressure the natural or the main, like you could get a bit cheeky maybe on Central Protocol, but...
Map makers? In fact, no, I like ramps.
No.
Can you imagine Zerg?
Map makers do not do that. Please.
Poor Cyclones.
What would be like an older map that we would think about in that way then? Like maybe Bridgehead?
Like Tal'Darim.
Okay, Tal'Darim, Altarim. That's
really old school.
We are digging through ancient hieroglyphics now for map names. Zelnaga Caverns, man. Great map for Cyclones.
Actually, Cyclones would be good on that map.
Cyclones would be sick on Zelnaga Caverns, just like Liberators on Scrap Station, you know.
I'm kind of curious, like, by the way, you know how Guardian Shield is much better against Marauders now? So he didn't seem to use Guardian Shield in that fight. He was mainly relying on force fields.
Yeah, that's true.
If he had like
Did he have enough energy?
No, because he only had 3 sentries.
Yeah, he had just warped them in too, so you're not really going to get the Guardian Shield, but it definitely would have helped.
Yeah, like if you have an Adept, they have 1 armor, right? Base armor?
Yeah.
So if you have Guardian Shield, that's negating like 3 damage per hit.
Yeah, it's negating 3 damage per hit.
So
the Marauders do 5 damage, so it's 2. Yeah, it's... You're not really
deal
doing
4 damage to Adepts.
4 damage
Marines
per
would deal
volley.
3 damage per hit.
It's bad, man.
So if he managed...
And the Adepts 2-shot the Marines and the SCVs.
And Marines 60-shot Adepts or something. It's kind of nuts.
I did the math on that once because I was like, when those Roach pushes used to kill all the Terran players, like when you have like guys like Revival and Violet doing it in WCS, and I was like, that plus, it's like, why is it +1 carapace for Roach? It's like actually adds an extra 9 shots that it requires because of the health regen for like a single Marine to actually kill a Roach. It's like, these armor upgrades, this Guardian Shield stuff actually has some weight to it. puCK did dodge out. I think he went maybe to catch a quick breath of fresh air, so that's why we're just waiting a little bit more before we get into this game. But definitely one of those positions where if TY can get away with that little bit of cheeky, greedy play.
Here we see Lambo just providing tips to Parting, just like trying to help him become the player that Lambo is, you know, like, you just do this.
This is the part where Lambo's pointing out, he's like, yeah, you see the Ravager doesn't have an armored tag. Don't build Immortals versus them.
This is why Koreans are so good, because you just have people like Lambo helping them out all the time. Yeah. This is what you don't see on camera most of the time.
Yeah, that's true. I remember when I coached Flash to all those MSL
to victory.
No one recorded those parts.
Damn.
When I was like 15 years old, no one recorded it to Muslim.
So going into the next game, in fact, we have
the maps.
So second map will be
the list is a little hard to read. It could be Laralac Crest as well.
Laralac Crest.
That map is really funky.
I mean, against Protoss, it's not as bad. Like, against Zerg,
okay,
I veto
but
that.
You have such a large ramp on your natural and the backdoor to your natural that it does make the Adept Shadows very difficult to handle.
Yeah, that is true. At least there isn't that like, say if you kill the Rocks to your third, there isn't this super available path to the main ramp for puCK to do any of that blink stuff.
Yeah, but I still think it's great for Warp Prisms.
Oh, me
with
too.
All the different angles that you can hit from. At the same time, it's also good for Terran drops for the same reason.
But yeah, we've seen puCK primarily do what we haven't really seen a lot of Protossers do against Terran, like he did against Happy on Ruins of Ceres, where he immediately ran for that main ramp. Then blinks in, gets the sentries in. Like, against Happy, it worked much better than it did against TY, so there is a reason why he was doing a build like that, because in this tournament, he absolutely demolished with it.
Yeah, it makes me wonder how much of puCK's games TY has actually watched. I mean, of all the players that are competing here, I definitely say puCK's probably one of the easiest to study. He streams a lot. He's quite good. Great stream to learn from. As you guys can see, we are loaded in now to Laralac Crest, and that is our red Protoss in the northeast from Team Flipside Tactics. He's puCK.
One of your good friends, Nathanius.
He's a
you
cool
captain
dude.
in Team America.
Yeah. puCK bringing out the disruptor jobs. You know, I first met puCK. He trolled me on my stream when I was in Diamond 5 years ago, and Colossus dropped me. That was every game. It was bad. It was brutal. He was pretty mean to me when I met him, now that I think about it.
And spawning in the top left, as our blue Terran over here, it is TY. I remember when I roach rushed you.
That was bad. Just imagine, though, that you're like Like, imagine if you're just like such a complete scrub that you don't really understand the concept of like dodging attacks. And I was like opening Banshee versus Protoss and just like picks up the Colossus right as the Banshee shot's about to hit it and just dodges it. I'm just like, this is broken, you know?
Oh.
It's a Colossus drop. Of course, building Vikings was way too difficult for me to do. So
That's when you realize, oh, my great strat, it's been thwarted.
this Colossus drop hard counters Banshee so much. Unbelievable.
Gosh darn it. So scouted almost immediately. Going for the Nexus first again. I really like that puCK's going for the Nexus first, by the way.
Like, I don't really see much reason not to go Nexus first.
Even if you lose a probe or two, I don't really think that's enough of a deficit to go gateway into Nexus later on. Like, this build just seems the one to do in TvP.
It's very solid. It's hard to punish. You can't really do any weird stuff because the Protoss will always have the pylon overcharge, and once that mothership core completes, you have 2 immediately available. Do you like how fast puCK gets this second gateway set up here?
I don't really...
Do you know? Do you think it matters much, or
I don't think it's necessary.
where else do you think he could invest it?
In the
or
minerals?
does it matter as much? Yeah, the minerals from the gateway.
I'm not really sure. I mean, he could potentially get his gases. I mean, he's already got a lot of gas too.
Just a stylistic choice then.
Stylistic choice, yeah. I like one of the things that I don't see a reason for the second gateway is what are you going to do with it early on? Like, that's what you have to ask yourself. Like, we've seen puCK try and be very, very aggressive. And by the way, this Reaper's already getting a few good shots. Really good micro from TY.
Yeah, he almost gets stuck there as those grenade explosions continue to be annoying.
Oh, and he's behind the mineral line here.
Uh-oh, if that mothership core pops out, things could get really hairy here. That probe running for his life. All the Reapers diving in again. So close. Definitely, he's playing with fire. He could lose. Okay, he should lose it now.
Is he? Perfect timing, getting away by that mothership core popping out. And the reason that was perfect timing.
It's funny because, like, for us, we can see that production tab. We know how close the mothership core is.
TY is just like,
TY's like, oh, I'm actually not 100% sure I know the moment that'll pop out. He's obviously good enough at the game to be able to guess, but it's still risky.
That feeling when you throw a grenade and you accidentally run on it stops you from killing the probe. But really, quite nice defense, only losing 2 probes. It could have been quite a bit more given how well TY was microing right there. And TY, again, going for a 3rd CC. This Zealot wandered a little bit too far, but is saved.
Zealot dreams are still alive. The Warp Prism play could possibly be what we see once again. I don't really think there's a reason not to. The amount of micro and control that you can do. This really fast defensive Cyclone opening off 3 command centers is so intriguing to me.
I love this pylon placement. This is what I wanted to see earlier. Because
it's a great spread.
Yeah, if you play against a Cyclone, and he has to stay at the top of the ramp to deal damage because you need to keep vision.
Need vision, right.
So this little Marine hit squad, I'm really curious what he really plans on doing with it.
Like, I guess the idea is that you try to focus fire, then you try to lock on to the mothership core, dance around the edge of the pylon's range, but that doesn't seem like it's going to be an option here.
Maybe it's a distraction to try and get the Reaper in, I'm not sure. Or
wow.
The Reaper's a distraction to try and get the Marines in.
This seems so crazy. This is so risky. Like, you throw all these units in, and if you lose all of these for nothing, it's really tough. The fact that the Cyclone is still alive is really, really important, though, because these Marines alone aren't going to do it. Yeah, you should be able to kill it. The probes are going to come up. He tries to get it, and he does kill that mothership core.
Blow for blow.
It's a tough loss to take. So we have an Immortal that's about to come out as well. So not that straightaway rush into the Warp Prism. A second Immortal. So maybe we're going to see one of those Immortal Adept shoves. And I think those are very strong, especially when you consider that Stim has not yet started. That's the weakness of opening up with a fast Cyclone and 3 command centers. It's so greedy.
But again, he's gone for another Cyclone here. Like, I'm not really sure about this.
Yeah,
I mean,
the second Cyclone is really questionable because he still gets the tank. Like, he has delayed everything so much to make this happen.
Look at this. He even saw the Immortal in the bottom left of the scan. So he knows exactly what he's up against here. And I wouldn't be surprised if we just see a few bunkers go down, more tanks go down.
I think he needs, a few more bunkers at least.
Bunker in the main.
And the thing is that Warp Prism is still a big issue. Yeah, there we go. There's actually a bunker right there next to the main command center. He's continuing to produce siege tanks, which...
They're actually great now against Immortals and Adepts, given how they clump.
It does come down a lot to where that Warp Prism is able to sneak its way in. I think you want to keep the tank very close to the bunker so that you can't just warp the Adepts on top of it and bypass its range, or just drop the Immortals on it. At the same time, being split between those 2 bases with how limited the production is and how limited the upgrades are because of the 3 command center opening, it's still a very tough, scary spot to be in for TY.
I love the fact that he's making this wall for the tank and then placing the tank considerably behind the wall. it just makes that tank so hard to kill for Immortals and such.
Yeah, I really think finishing this wall off so that Adepts cannot just warp right past, they can't just phase through and get onto those tanks, is super important. There you can see the Shadows cannot go through buildings, so if he wants to fight this, he's going to have to go straight in. He does have sentries, so he can force field once again, but getting all those units up there at once will be very difficult to do.
Man, this 3-0 of puCK is looking pretty bleak now. Both the Immortals use their active ability here.
And there we go. So he uses the Immortals to knock down the depot. This way the Adepts can phase through and get right on top of the siege tank, as well as these SCVs that are trying desperately to repair it. Even the Mule coming in to handle it, but not quite enough. The Immortals get dropped forward. First Immortal is picked up. Second Immortal getting very low. Saved at the last second by the Warp Prism. That bunker still standing strong. TY is holding on. He loses 9 SCVs so far defending this push.
Man, that is a trade I'd take any day. He's got +1/+1 on the way, Stim on the way.
And that third orbital.
Quite a few of his tanks are still done. And look, worker count-wise, he's still well ahead. And now he knows what he's up against. In Protoss, when they fail once, what do they have really to fall back on? Well, they usually have to do it again.
Yeah, I mean, that robotics bay is so late this game, especially without that third base. So puCK puts himself in a position where he is all in for all intents and purposes here. Recovering from another failed push will be very difficult for him to do. He's trying to hold this lower position outside the range of the siege tanks, but at some point or another, he's going to be forced to face the music. Stim is so close to completing.
I love this army composition of TY with the tanks. It's just so hard to break him. Most Terrans forgo tanks, just throw down lots of bio, and you can get overwhelmed by the Adepts, but here, just keeping him at bay with the tanks. TY doesn't even need that gas. Look, he's at 500 gas right now, but now, Stim +1/+1 is done.
This tank play is actually really, really nice. Just that way to push these forces away. It makes it so scary, so difficult to make those attacks work. And consider, because Stim is done, now attacking into this, I don't think it'll work.
I mean, okay, we have to look at puCK. He's actually had only 2 workers on one of his gases in his main the whole game. And that was since the Reaper harass actually went down. So the difference in gas between those main gases, that's a big deal. Yes, his build isn't completely compromised with gas and such, but just little mistakes can get you really far behind.
Yeah, puCK trying to go in for that Adept harass.
Saved it.
And I mean, this is one way to try to buy time. But the thing is, at some point or another, now that these medevacs are coming out, TY is just going to push out with all of this. And I'm not really sure. Like, puCK's in a position where this Adept army, as beefy and tanky as it is, when those upgrades, now that they're starting to finish up for this Terran force without any forges on the map, I'm not really sure what he's going to do. And he takes this base outside the southeast area. I think something's blocking his actual third, maybe?
And
oh,
it is
an engineering bay.
bay.
Didn't see that.
You know, just your standard everyday, like that is the standard, you know. Oh, this Disruptor though. Man, Disruptors, they always get me gasping for breath.
This is still such a rough spot to be in, because his army's been so committed on the map, he actually can't deal with that engineering bay. What a conundrum.
Gosh darn it. Oh, the tank drops though against this army. Even if you can get any damage done, any real damage done behind that shield, it's good.
Diving on those tanks is also, you know, not really super effective, because the medevacs can just pick them up as soon as they're in danger. This Cyclone is being annoying. He's really getting the most out of all these.
Those sentries. Ooh,
all these units he invested. And you mentioned earlier that Guardian Shield is really important, especially since there's no upgrades. +1 armor is on the way. Oh, this Warp Prism. Dancing around, and I like this. 2 Vikings saying, yeah, Terran still has these units. Get out of my face. Get Warp Prism speed before you come back, puCK.
One thing that is worth noting, though, about Terran upgrades and Marauders specifically, if you do get ahead in upgrades, Marauders actually deal more damage. And
that's one of the Disruptors.
Oh, man, that's a large loss. And now he can't back up this army as quick as he wants to. This warp-in takes ages.
I have no idea what puCK is going to do now. Getting the Vikings for free is really nice. So, okay, rebuild your Warp Prism, I suppose.
They were Independence Day Vikings. They just ran in there, had no care in the world.
Dying in a really cool, explosive way doesn't always mean much. Also, I don't know if puCK actually fixed his probes. He did not click on the mineral patch on that base, so they weren't mining for a little bit either.
So a few mistakes coming out of puCK here. Kind of getting a little bit nervous, it seems.
Yeah,
so
this army is massive. I don't know how puCK is supposed to be able to defend against this. He needs the Dream Disruptor shots all over it. Look at these Widow Mines as he spreads out his bios. Like these Adepts will all transfer in one big clump, and they just die.
Those Adepts kind of just got stranded there, and the Disruptors are so far forward, getting picked off. And now the Adepts trying to run away again. GG is called. Man, TY is definitely handing it to puCK right now.
TY is just getting away, honestly, with what really feels like mega greedy play. Like that fast third command center, super late stim, double engineering bay, but he's up 2-0 now against puCK, who's been playing like this 2-base aggression into that later third, and yeah, TY seems to have figured out a way to deal with it. I feel like puCK needs to change things up or find a better way to punish just the greedy opening.
Yeah, because he's relying on that third CC being very fast. But puCK's aggression, it seems much slower than Lilbo's. Lilbo's in your face. I'm going to take advantage of 5-second windows.
That Cyclone doesn't even come out that fast either. Like it's really just about like puCK kind of powers up for a little bit, then does his harass. Whereas if he were to just go straight for the harass, like almost like 1.5 base style, I really feel like he'd be able to get there. Like maybe when those Marines are out on the map and it's just a Cyclone, and then I really feel like he has an opportunity to get some work done. But his attacks seem to be hitting right at that moment where TY is barely able to hold, and then because of the third command center and the double E-bays that are running, like, yeah, he's just, of course he's going to win with the follow-up.
I'm also curious, like, I still haven't seen much use for the second gateway early on. Like,
yeah, maybe he's just worried that there'd be more than one Reaper.
And, I mean, potentially,
I don't know.
I guess. Also, the base layout, it's very easy for the Reaper just run behind the mineral lines and such, which Protoss in Heart of the Swarm got very good at building their bases, which kind of just got abandoned. He's more thinking about his pylon positioning to defend.
When I think about that map, too, like, if you start to notice that TY is doing this, like, he also should just get fast third Nexus as well. Like, playing 2 bases versus that 3 CC, it's like, okay, if you can't kill him, like, puCK, it took puCK a long time and a lot of forces lost before he kind of, like, decided, okay, and got his robotics bay as well. Because the robotics bay was really late, the third base was really late. It's not like his play still seems reasonably sharp, aside from that missed probe on the gas that you mentioned after the Reaper phase.
A few little micro decisions, and maybe just a few decisions in general.
Yeah, I think it's really just how he's been handling TY's opening that's been the most troubling part, because he sets himself up in these positions where you're like, okay, he's got a bunch of depths, he's got immortals, he cracks the walls down, but he can't get his army into that position that he needs to deal with the fact that he's got a bunker next to his tanks.
Yeah, it's getting really tough for puCK, and we are going to go into the game right now. But puCK, he also hasn't resorted to that disruptor style, just straight up disruptor, warp prism speed, harassing while getting a third Nexus going down. Which
yeah, I'd like to see that. Like if he wants to play without going for a mega fast all-in versus this, just play with mega fast harass and don't commit so hard to that. Just use the fact that your opponent doesn't have an easy way to run around their own base, get those disruptor shots in, and make it happen. Do everything that you can in a way that allows you to play as greedily as humanly possible without being punished. Already, we have a switch up from the red Protoss. On the top left, of course, he is team Flipside Tactics. puCK opening with that gateway this game. No
Nexus
Nexus
first.
first.
And spawning on the other side is our blue Terran. It is TY. Grey Khan also called him thank you. He did ask at a BC, he was like, hey, who won out of thank you and bomber?
Swedish trolls. Oh,
No, he was legit. He thought TY meant thank you.
He thought a guy came into this tournament literally named thank you.
Called thank you, yes. It's Grey Khan, man. A lovely guy.
Esports.
As lovely as Snoot the Conqueror.
Yes.
Conquering as we speak.
Truly a legend, to say the least.
So, same build so far for TY, going for the Reaper, the early command center.
If you're puCK, I actually think this gives... I want to see him like ricochet off of this gateway opening into a much faster aggression, because TY plays the same style that he's played so far. He gets this Reaper, which honestly shouldn't do anything versus a gateway opening, and he has the 3 command center follow-up with that late factory. He really shouldn't be able to get enough out in time to stop like a bit of a poke back at his base. A few Marines won't handle a 2 or so adept push, especially if he brings a Mothership Core or maybe even a Stalker just to poke.
Honestly, TY isn't the kind of player that I, as a Protoss, would like to play in the late game. He seems to use all the new units and new abilities, such as those siege tank drops, the Widow Mines,
the Liberator
Liberators.
usage was phenomenal. Like,
yeah,
you could not attack one Liberator without being in the zone of another, and that really shows that he understands the positional usage of those units. There's the factory from TY, by the way.
He's a very scary player late game. So,
and the 3rd command center.
I understand puCK's reasoning for, hey, I'm going to try and be aggressive and such early game, and he had the advantage of being able to see TY lose against Lilbo, so he's seen it done. But it's just is just falling short in certain areas. So this Twilight Council very early on, and it goes for Blink very quickly. So that to me also suggests that puCK wants to play defensive with that Blink.
Yeah,
I don't really class that as an offensive ability, especially on this map. Like, where do you get in, really, and deal damage and force field?
I don't think there really is anywhere that he can. You can try to go into the main from that low ground area, but especially versus someone who's going to build tanks, I don't see how that's really supposed to get too much done. Maybe he just takes that third Nexus super fast, but outside of that, if he doesn't go for a fast third Nexus, I'm not really sure what he gets.
Doesn't know how lucky he is, skimming past that Reaper and still living to tell the tale. Now here, this Reaper, he's getting quite far into the space. Oh, 2 overcharges, and that Reaper lives to tell the tale.
Wow. Reaper managing to stay alive. That Adept is not going to be able to find a kill, unfortunately.
It's a lot of gateways, Nathaniel.
Yeah, so just a very fast Blink push. Now that Cyclone is done, so the ideal move now would be to get that Siege Tank. He needs a little bit more gas before he can start it up. Keep in mind, this is also still, once again, causing him to be purely based off
Scouts.
of just
beautiful
naked
scout.
Marines. And yeah, he knows what's up.
And he sees that there's only, the only gases going up on that natural are just now. So seeing that his gas income's so low, he has to assume that this isn't anything like DTs and what have you. There isn't some Dark Shrine hidden on the map.
No. I mean, honestly, if TY wants to be super safe, considering that he is looking at, he sees a third base, by the way, he has a unit, I think it's an SCV or a Reaper. He knows that there's no third Nexus. So why not get a bunker inside your main? Just stay safe, lock things down, be defensive, and don't die.
Now, this Cyclone didn't go out and navigate the map, so he doesn't know what he's up against, but puCK, he's really going for this. And when you're going against a Terran such as TY that's playing exceptionally defensive right now, I think puCK's in trouble. Is that 2 Cyclones that he has as well?
Yeah, I think so.
Because once you commit, there's no blinking away from those rockets.
Yeah, it is just 1 Cyclone, but he's got the second tank coming out. And look at where the tank's positioned. Like, okay, maybe he can poke the front a bit, but he's not entering the bit. He's not blinking past this wall without losing everything. And
if he blinks into the left, though, and starts running down that ramp.
Yeah, there is a bit of a position here. He does dive in. He gets the Cyclone immediately. The second Siege Tank is there. He's just going to fight in the natural. All the SCVs are being pulled. With the benefit of these Marines, he's going to blink to the right side. Oh, he's just going to try to target down the Siege Tanks. He's going to get 1, going for 2. He has lost a lot of Stalkers, but he's so committed. 5 more are warping, and he's getting to work on the wall as well. He's got that Adept down there. Blinks outside of that base. This is still a really tricky position to be in. Stim is so far away. All he has are naked Marines with no upgrades at all.
That is a hell of a lot of Stalkers, though. The Stalker count is starting to outnumber the Marine count as this fight goes on, keeping all those Stalkers alive, blinking away, but he needs to kill him now.
Yeah, the biggest issue right now is even just vision. Like, he can even just have 1 Adept. He could build 1 Adept, use the Shadow to get vision, and then have the Stalkers fight. And he could even, either let the Adept go there and die, but at least get vision so that these Stalkers can make something happen. And that's exactly what he does. I love this. He knows he doesn't have any air units to get that high ground vision, so just using the Adept as a tool to get what he needs.
But TY is not losing workers with this. He's even denying the third here. So amongst all this chaos, all this aggression that's being thrown at him, he's still being annoying.
Yeah, and he has that tank now. So if puCK wants to break him, he will have to go for, the suicide blink. He'll have to dive right on top of this army, face the music. There's the Adepts trying to get in, and I love that he really quickly tried to put this wall back together as well, so he can't just teleport through. And I think if the Adepts were able to get through that supply depot wall, by the way, he would have been able to just blink on top of him and maybe crush him. But Stim is about to finish, and I think that, coupled with an SCV pull, I don't think that puCK can break him anymore.
Uh-oh, the misplaced barracks there, not quite landing on the tech lab, it looks like. So, yep, there we are. But Stim finishing. +1 weapons, almost finished too. In fact, is finished now. Completely in sync with Stim.
So because there's a really late starport, the most this can be for puCK now is a contained play, right? Like, I don't see any way he's going to continue to push in.
And containing a Terran at this point in the game when you really haven't killed that many SCVs, and honestly, on 2-base economy, Terran's pretty darn happy anyway.
Yeah. Well, he's going to come down this ramp. This actually could be a big opportunity for puCK if he's able to force field him.
Could be huge, actually, Nathaniel.
He's
so
using
this
the
is
tanks.
A lot of Marines.
He is using the tanks to get the vision, but a force field or 2 could actually get a lot of work done. He does have the Adepts, and this is a moment where TY has to be really careful. So puCK is going to pull back. He doesn't want to risk it. Those tanks on the high ground are very strong, so TY is going to get that third base up, and puCK is just going to sit outside. I think puCK, at this point, you might as well just go home. The medevacs are on their way.
Yeah, for puCK, the assault is over, and now TY is starting to take a supply lead for the first time in this game, really. finishing off the upgrades. Adept upgrades incoming. I like that because there is a huge amount of Marines on the field. Still playing rather aggressive. I love the scouting with the shades. There's no point not doing that.
Free vision. A lot of Marines, and Combat Shield isn't ready yet. So if you were to go for a big push with a ton of Adepts right as that attack speed upgrade finishes, before Combat Shield especially, you could get a lot done. And oh yeah, this medevac, he has a big opportunity for Stalkers. If he were to catch vision of this, he could dive on this too.
Oh no, the scan goes down. That's a huge amount of Adepts. I wouldn't be surprised
He's going to notice.
He
notices that most of the Terran army is actually missing, so he's just going to start pushing in against this. He says, okay, if your army is in the air, I'll come push the Adepts teleport on top of the siege tanks. They're hitting the Adepts in the back, so the Stalkers can continue attack from the front. But it's not enough to break this army. 6 SCVs die, but at what cost?
At what cost, Nathanius? That was a really nice pullback by TY. He scanned and he saw the army moving in on top of his lackluster army.
Bringing those medevacs back was so clutch for TY. That could have been everything right there. Now he's going to come out here, fight against these Stalkers. These Adepts can't really run away against this stimmed bio. The Stalkers have to continue to blink, and puCK, he's got a Disruptor on the way out now. He has the attack speed upgrade for his Adepts, but I don't know how he's going to try to hold on, especially with this 4th base. Like, if you could get away with the 4th, maybe that brings him back into it, but how the hell does he do that? He doesn't even have any pylons here to overcharge.
Oh, he was confident for a 3-0, but it looks like it's heading for a 0-3 here, or rather a 3-0 in the opposite fashion. Here, the Adepts, they can't really hold on. He's got less upgrades. Photon Overcharge is going to keep him in it for now. This Disruptor, though, where is it rallied to? Okay, does get a shot off a couple of Marines here. The TY knows he has to be careful, but TY not giving him the time.
There's only one pylon powering that robotics facility, so the next Disruptor that's on the way out might actually not be able to finish. It is stalled, so puCK has to clean this army up. There's that Widow Mine. Widow Mines have been the bane of puCK's play so far this tournament. Really strong tool utilized against him. There's the siege tanks on the low ground, covered by those Widow Mines. The pylons will overcharge, but they won't be enough to stop this Terran force. TY continues to push in, 50 supply lead. There's the Disruptor's going to take that shot, but it gets killed before it can ignite. And now puCK has only one option as a Widow Mine blows up half his Adepts.
Oh, this is looking so gnarly, and TY, as soon as he starts going, after he's defended everything that puCK's thrown at him, he just never stops. These Widow Mines well placed, the tanks well placed, the bio in the main isn't getting cleaned up, and neither is this bio at the natural. The Disruptor shot, though, it does get off. It is a huge shot, but too little, too late, and puCK calls GG, and TY goes through 3-0.
Yeah, really exceptional play by TY. Honestly, inspiring to see that he can get away with that level of greed against a player who I would say is pretty good in that aggressive phase, you know, in general with Protoss as puCK. But yeah, I don't know, man. I wish I could get away with going 3 CC in my games. It's tough.
His aggression was just a little bit different to Lilbo's aggression. Like, Lilbo's was just more shameless and more persistent.
Lilbo's shameless builds, I feel like, really punish this style. But that, you know, I think puCK played a little, perhaps if you want to like look at it from an aggressive perspective, maybe middle of the road as far as that goes.
Certainly, and we are joined at the panel back again with Snoot and Apollo. Hello, guys.
Hello.
Hi.
What do you guys think of that series? Like, we got to see puCK earlier on yesterday against Happy lose, and he thought he was going to 3-0. You guys talked about how confident he was.
Very confident going into it. Felt like he was... I don't know if his game plan was wrong, but it felt like he was over-aggressive or overly aggressive in the way that he approached the series. Maybe I'm wrong in that, but that's what it looked like.
I agree with what you said about Lilbo's approach. Like, puCK also likes to be aggressive, but this was too much of a macro-oriented style. Going up against the triple command build kind of fell into TY's trap, I feel, because when TY goes for triple command and puCK tries to punish it with a bit of a delayed 2-base timing, and it's so much easier for TY to stop. And I think if puCK wanted to go for something more like Lilbo style, I mean, that could also fall flat on his face if puCK didn't have the experience, for example.
Yeah.
So
one massive weakness that I talked about it during the game, but Disruptor drops against that style. You don't have medevacs. Your army's very slow and stationary, especially without stim. So getting a Disruptor hit, the tanks can't move without the medevacs, and the bio, it's up for easy grabs. And while you're taking a third yourself, you can then contain your opponent on 2 bases and such. So puCK's game plan just seemed a little bit out of sync there.
Yeah, I really feel like a lot of it comes down to not only that, but just the way that you're fighting somebody head-on like that. And there are so many other ways to mess around with that. Like, if you notice that TY likes to shove out with his 1 Cyclone and 8 Marines, Don't you think like even a 2-base Stargate play could get a lot of work done if you're running in an Oracle at that point? He gets his E-base pretty late too. Like you're putting yourself in a position where your options look pretty solid, but he set himself up very well to handle the ground pushes as well. Like even on Laralac, all that depot wall, he prevented Adepts from being able to run by. Like everything was very methodically thought out by TY. And it was awesome.
A top 8 finish, though, is still very respectable from puCK, though, coming into this
Definitely.
event. Great to get out of group stages, perform well to get a victory, at least at the start of the bracket today as well, right?
Yeah, definitely a good showing for puCK. I mean, any North American watching this, that's about as inspiring a result as you're going to be able to get, and hopefully puCK continues to kick ass.
All right, well, the interview is ready, so we're going to go over to Smix, who is with TY.
Thank you very much, Apollo. Congratulations, TY. It just seems from that series and seeing your expression, you seem a lot better in terms of condition. You had mentioned that you didn't feel very well earlier. What did you do to feel better? Because you mentioned that you really wanted to take care of that. 아까 전에 컨디션이 안 좋다고 했는데 이제는 좀 괜찮아 보여요. 그러니까 어떻게 해서 컨디션 좋게 만들었는지.
아까 인터뷰 누나랑 하고 나서 끝나자마자 바로 숙소로 가서 밥 먹고 좀 누워있다 왔거든요. 약간 좀 잠을 자고 왔는데 그게 좀 이번 경기할 때 많이 도움이 된 것 같고 좀 손도 굉장히 좀 덜 춥고 전체적으로 좀 많이 마음에 들었어요. 컨디션 자체가.
So he says, actually, after that interview I had with you earlier, I went right back to my hotel room. I got some food and I went straight to sleep. And I think that actually had a huge part of why I was able to feel so much better in terms of this series. And not just in terms of my tiredness, my hands also felt a lot warmer. They were frigid earlier. So I think that's why I was able to do a lot better in terms of my condition for this particular series. And let's talk about this series. You went 3-0. It was very dominant. Earlier in that interview, I don't know if it was just you being humble, but you had mentioned that you were not nervous, but definitely respecting puCK because he has been doing well, and you also lost to Lil Bo yesterday, so you definitely have indicated that you're respecting these foreign Protoss players. How do you like TVP right now? 일단 아까 전에는 이제 puCK 선수도 존경하고 어제는 릴보 선수한테 졌으니까 근데 지금 토스전 대해서 어떻게 생각하세요?
아직 좀 프로토스 좀 신유닛이 굉장히 많이 나오고 그래가지고 좀 더 이렇게 연구를 해봐야 되는 단계이긴 한데 사실상 사실 다른 것보다도 약간 그 사도 방금 마지막 3세트처럼 약간 그 사도로 이렇게 억지로 들어오는 그런 부분에 대해서는 테란들이 좀 해법을 찾기가 좀 힘들더라고요. 그런 부분은 좀 어느 정도 블리자드의 좀 선택을 약간 좀 패치를 조금은 바라고 있어요.
Interesting. So he says in terms of TVP, we're definitely in a time period where, obviously everything is still very new. So I think people are still trying to figure out, what to do in terms of these scenarios. But specifically speaking with Protoss Adepts, especially in that game 3, as we just saw, Protoss players like to come aggressively with that. And in terms of that, I personally feel that Terran players have a hard time dealing with that. So please, Blizzard, patch. Please, I'm requesting a patch, Blizzard. Despite that, you obviously came out on top, and next player that you're going to be facing will be Parting or Solar, and it's really funny because it seems like the stars are aligning against the Korean players at this tournament. You had to play a Korean earlier, you're going to have to play another Korean again. Out of those two players, who do you prefer to play? 일단 이제 아까 전에도 한국 선수, 최주성 선수 만났었고 이제 또 한국 선수 만나야 돼요. 그게 원희석 선수나 아니면 강민수 선수인데 그 중에서 누구랑 더 하고 싶으세요?
제가 항상 원희석 선수한테 좀 많이 떨어져가지고 사실 게이머 하면서 목표 중 하나가 원희석을 좀 이겨보는 게 목표예요. 그래서 좀 많이 제가 만약에 이삭이랑 하게 되면 많이 테란 유저들은 응원을 좀 많이 해주셨으면 좋겠어요. 정말 이기고 싶어요.
Wow, so he says, actually, I've historically lost to Parting a lot. So I really, really want to get revenge on him. I've been wanting to, in terms of even just my career, it's been a goal of mine to be able to beat Parting on LAN. So please, if you are a Terran player, please cheer for me because I really, really want to beat Parting. So we'll see if your wish will come true and who you will face. Congratulations again, TY, in advancing to the top 6 at this tournament. As we just mentioned, he will be going up against the loser of Parting versus Solar. But the next match, before we get there, will be a rematch between between Showtime and Bling. So we'll see, will the German Protoss be able to get that revenge, or will it be hashtag Bly on fire once again? Stay tuned.